Who's actually going to get the most out of a high-end audio interface like the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X Quad, and who would be better off walking away? If you're trying to decide whether it's worth the price tag for a normal everyday home recording setup, you're probably wrestling with a few questions. Do I really need that many UAD plugins built in? Will the Thunderbolt 3 connection actually make a difference in my workflow? And can I afford to risk buying a piece of gear that might sit half-used on my desk? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's break down the real-world considerations, because the hype around next-generation conversion and unison preamps can feel a little abstract until you picture them in a day-to-day studio. First off, the Apollo Twin X sits in a niche that's somewhere between the entry-level USB interfaces you see on a lot of YouTube tutorials and the massive multi-channel units that fill professional tracking rooms. The biggest practical strength is the combination of Thunderbolt 3 connectivity and Universal Audio's onboard DSP. In my own mix sessions, the low-latency path means I can record a vocal, crank a classic LA2A emulation in the unison preamp, and monitor the result without a noticeable delay. That immediacy is something you can't fake with a software-only solution, especially if you're running a DAW on a laptop that's already juggling plugins. The auto gain feature is another time-saver. You plug in a mic or line source, hit a button, and the interface sets a clean level across multiple inputs in a second. For someone who records a few tracks a day and doesn't want to spend time dialing in gain knobs, that's a genuine workflow boost. But the Twin X isn't a universal solution for every bedroom setup. It only offers two analog inputs, a mic/line combo and an instrument line, plus a couple of balanced line outputs. If you're the type who tracks drums, a full band, or multiple guitars simultaneously, you'll quickly find the I/O limiting. The price point, which sits well over $1,000, also means you need a Thunderbolt 3 compatible computer. Older Macs or Windows rigs without a native Thunderbolt port will need an expensive adapter, and that adds both cost and potential instability. In practice, I've seen users complain that the Thunderbolt cable is a single point of failure. A loose connection can drop your whole session. So if you're just starting out and only need a single mic for podcasts or voiceover work, the Apollo's power is overkill and the budget could be better allocated to a decent condenser mic and a modest audio interface. Let's talk about the plugin library, because that's where the Twin X starts to show its value beyond raw hardware. The unit ships with access to the full UAD catalog, over 200 DSP and native plugins, which includes everything from vintage compressors to tape emulations. In a realistic scenario, a small indie producer can record a guitar track, apply a classic Fender 65 tweed amp model, and then run it through a UAD 1176 compressor, all in real time without taxing the computer's CPU. That means you can experiment with tonal shaping while you record, not after the fact. It also cuts down on the need to buy third-party plugins later. Many users treat the Apollo as a one-stop shop for classic analog sounds. The downside is that you're locked into the UAD ecosystem. If you prefer native plugins from other vendors, you'll still need to buy them separately, and the DSP resources, while generous, can be exhausted if you stack too many heavy emulations on a single mix. From a daily usability standpoint, the monitor correction feature is a hidden gem. I've used the Apollo in a modest bedroom with untreated walls, and the built-in correction lets me switch between a flat reference and a more listen-in curve that compensates for room anomalies. When I'm mixing with headphones, the Apollo's Q Mix lets me blend the main stereo output with a separate headphone mix without any extra routing. Those practical touches make the interface feel like a small mixing console rather than a Mire/D converter. On the flip side, the learning curve can be steep for people who have never touched a UAD console. The console software is powerful but not always intuitive. You need to spend some time mapping the physical knobs on the Twin's front panel to the virtual controls you want to tweak. If you're impatient or prefer plug-and-play simplicity, you might find yourself fiddling more than recording. So, who should press the Add to Cart button? If you're a serious home studio musician, a producer who already uses UAD plugins, or a small to medium project engineer who values real-time analog emulation without draining your computer, the Apollo Twin X Quad delivers a combination of sound quality, workflow efficiency, and future-proofing that's hard to match. It also makes sense for those who already own a Thunderbolt 3-ready laptop and want to upgrade their monitoring and preamp options without adding external hardware racks. Who should skip it? Beginners on a shoestring budget, podcasters who only need a single mic input, or anyone who's